series, The Secret of Law and Grace. Part 1. The Creation of the World and Original Perfection. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel. Prayer Braze. Turn on the notification bell and comment below what impacts you the most in this episode. Today, we dive into the oldest story of humanity, a story that shaped everything we are, everything we live, and even everything still to come. This episode is called Creation and Rebellion, when paradise was lost. In this first chapter, we'll see how the world was created, not by chance, but with a deep and eternal purpose. We'll discover how original perfection began to wear down, even before sin ever entered the world. This episode has 4 parts. 1. The creation of the world and original perfection. 2. The Garden of Eden and the entrance of evil. 3. Cain and Abel, the first great rupture. 4. The promise and hope of redemption. Each part will take you to a crucial moment in the biblical narrative, but it won't just be a story from sacred books. It will be an emotional, intense, and transformative journey. You will see the world with different eyes. Your vision will be transformed. Your faith will never be the same. Let's begin. In the beginning, there was emptiness. Not the emptiness of nothing, but the emptiness of everything. No light, no sound, no form. It was absolute silence. And then something happened. Something that changed everything. A breath. A word. An act of love so intense that it created the universe. God spoke, and light appeared. He said, "Let there be light," and the world was illuminated. There was no hesitation, no delay. Creation happened in moments, in days, or perhaps in instants that don't fit into our concept of time. But everything was made with purpose. Every star, every tree, every animal, every man and woman, everything had a place, a meaning. And God saw that it was good. Very good. So good that he decided to do what no one could have imagined, to create a being capable of understanding, of loving, of choosing, He created man in his image and likeness. And not just man, also woman, because perfection only makes sense when there is complementarity, when there is unity. Man and woman were placed in a garden where everything grew, where everything was abundant. A garden where there was no hunger, no pain, no suffering. It was paradise. But it wasn't just a physical paradise, it was a spiritual one. There they had communion with God. They could hear him, speak with him, feel his presence. But here lies the deepest secret. Perfection was not just a state. It was a relationship, it was a covenant. And that covenant was in balance. There was harmony, but also tension. Because even in the best of worlds, there is always something that can be questioned, something that can be tempted. And so the first tension arose, not from the outside, but from within perfection itself. Because man and woman had freedom. And with freedom comes choice, and with choice comes risk. Here's what you need to understand. The world was created in perfection, but that perfection wasn't static. It was dynamic. It required participation, and that's what makes what comes next so important. Because original perfection wasn't just a state, it was an invitation to live in harmony with God, with nature, and with their own hearts. But what happened next? How was that perfection broken? You'll find out in the next part, because the next chapter is not about creation, but about the fall, about the first sin, the first temptation, the first conflict between the human and the divine. If you want to know how paradise was lost, and why that loss still affects the world today, keep watching, because this episode is not just about the past, it's about the present, it's about the future, it's about you. Stay tuned, because the next part begins right after this one. Part 2, The Garden of Eden and the Entrance of Evil. Before anything else, comment below. What did God speak to you in part 1? What sentence or moment touched your heart? Your answer might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. In the beginning there was emptiness, But not just any emptiness, it was the emptiness before time, before form, before existence itself. It wasn't nothing. It was everything yet to be revealed. A deep silence, absolute, almost sacred. A silence that awaited something no one could foresee. And then, from within that silent abyss came a sound, a breath, a vibration, a command not merely spoken but proclaimed with eternal authority. Let there be light. And light tore through the darkness. It wasn't just brightness, it was awareness, direction, purpose. The universe was born from the voice of a creator who doesn't just act, but dreams, who doesn't just command, but loves. Creation unfolded in stages, 6 days, or 6 acts of a cosmic drama, with each scene revealing more of God's mind and heart. The sky, the earth, the waters, the stars, the animals. Everything came into being in response to His word. But something special was saved for the end. Something not merely made, but already formed by the very hands of God. Then the Creator bent down over the earth and shaped man. Dust. Yes, dust. But not ordinary dust. Dust filled with intention. Then, He breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living soul. God saw that something was still missing. So from the man's side He created the woman, not from new material but from his rib, so they would walk side by side, so they would be equal, complementary, created in the image and likeness of God Himself, and He placed them in a garden. But it wasn't just a beautiful place, it was Eden, a space of communion, harmony, and fullness. Fruit trees grew effortlessly. Rivers flowed through the land like veins, carrying life to every corner. Animals lived in peace. And there, at the center of it all, stood humanity, the crown of creation. But what made that place truly special wasn't the gold flowing in the rivers, nor the lush trees, nor even immortality. It was the presence of God. Yes, the Creator walked there. He spoke with them. He was near. There was no separation, no guilt, no fear. Now stop and think. The man and the woman could see God, hear Him, feel His presence like we feel the wind on our face. Nothing stood between them. It was as if heaven had come down to earth. But there was more, something many overlook. There was a cursed tree. Just one among so many. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And with it, a warning. You shall not eat from it. This is where the mystery begins. Why would God place a forbidden tree in the middle of paradise? Why offer a choice if failure was a possibility? The answer lies in the essence of creation. Freedom. Because where there is no freedom, there is no true love. And God didn't want programmed robots, He wanted free children. Free to choose, free to love, free to obey, or not. If this is making sense to you, hit the like button now and share this message with someone. That's how you help the word reach those who need it. And if you want to support the channel, Prayer Braze, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. The next part is on the way. And now comes the tension. The first tension in the universe. Not external, but internal. Freedom carries the weight of choice. And with choice comes the possibility of loss. Eden's perfection wasn't the perfection of control. It was the perfection of balance. Balance between obedience and temptation, between desire and duty, between creator and creation. And it was there, in the heart of that peaceful garden, that evil manifested. But here's something many don't realize. Evil didn't arrive with violence. It didn't come screaming. It didn't show up in fury. Evil came with subtlety, with sweet words, with quiet doubts, with questions that seemed harmless. The serpent was cunning, more than any other creature, and it didn't shout. It whispered. It didn't accuse. It questioned. It said, "Did God really say that?" And there, the first doubt was born. Not in the world, but in the human heart. That's how evil enters. not by breaking doors, but by opening small windows in the mind. Paradise was still in perfect order, but the human heart, it was exposed, vulnerable. And listen, God wasn't absent. He hadn't abandoned the garden, but his love was so great that he wouldn't violate the freedom of his creation. He allowed the choice. He waited. Meanwhile, the man and woman looked at the tree, and for the first time, the fruit wasn't just fruit. It was desire, curiosity, ambition, doubt. This is the moment where the story changes, because up until now, everything was creation. Now the conflict begins. But before we move forward, you need to understand a deep truth. Evil doesn't begin with an act. It begins with a thought, a distortion of truth, a leaning of the heart, a tiny seed that, if not pulled out, grows and destroys. Eden was still Eden. The trees still stood. The sun still shone. God was still present. But something invisible had already shifted. A crack, imperceptible, had opened in the human heart. And that's why this story isn't just about the past. It's about us. Because even today, each of us walks the line between obedience and temptation. We still hear whispers. We still face choices. We still walk through gardens where forbidden fruit hangs within reach. But what happened next? What happened when the choice was made? When the fruit was touched? When God's command was broken? That you'll discover in the next part, because the next chapter is not just about the fall of man. It's about the fall of all of us. It's about the invisible consequences that echo to this day. It's about shame, about guilt, about separation, and maybe about the first promise of redemption. Comment below. What did this part speak to you? What did God reveal to your heart while you listened? And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe to the Prayer Braze channel so you won't miss the next part. Because this series isn't just about Genesis. It's about you. It's about now. It's about the beginning and the new beginning. Stay tuned. The next part starts right after this one. Part 3, Cain and Abel, the first great rift channel, Prayer Braze. Before anything else, leave a comment below about what stood out to you in Part 2. What spoke to your heart? Which verse or part resonated with you the most? Also, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel Prayer Braze, and share this video. Your support helps this message reach more people. In the beginning, everything was new. Everything was pure. The world had been created with a beauty that today is hard to even imagine. God had formed the heavens and the earth, molded man with his own hands, and breathed life into his nostrils. Then, he gave him a companion, Adam and Eve. And they didn't just exist. They lived in direct communion with the Creator. But what was perfect was soon torn apart. The serpent deceived. The woman fell. The man consented. And God's voice, once sweet and near, now echoed as judgment. Where are you? Cast out of Eden, they now tread on a different soil. A world with thorns, a world with pain, a world with sweat and blood. And it is in this new scenario that the first two children of humanity are born. Cain and Abel. Two brothers, two offerings, two attitudes toward God. And this is where the first great rift in human history begins. Not just a family rift, but a spiritual one. Abel was a shepherd of sheep. He cared for life. He was sensitive to God's presence. Cain was a farmer. He worked the land, the same land that, because of sin, had been cursed. Both offered something to God. But God favored Abel and his offering, and did not favor Cain. Why? The text of Genesis doesn't go into detail, but Hebrews 11:4 gives us a clue. By faith, Abel offered to God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain. It wasn't just about what was offered, but about the heart with which it was offered. Cain became angry, his face fell. He was disturbed, bitter, resentful, and God in his mercy warned him. Why are you angry? If you do well, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do well, sin lies at the door. Its desire is for you, but you should rule over it. But Cain did not overcome sin. He embraced it. And what follows is the first murder committed by a human being. In a field, away from the eyes of their parents, away from any altar, Cain kills his brother. From jealousy came wrath. From wrath, hatred. From hatred, blood. And that blood did not stay silent. God said, "The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." It's powerful, isn't it? Blood has a voice. The innocent pain rises to heaven like a silent cry that man ignores, but God hears. Cain tries to hide. He responds, "Am I my brother's keeper?" But there's no deceiving the Creator. God condemns Cain. The ground which he worked now refuses to yield strength to him. He will be a fugitive and a wanderer. And still, even in the face of such transgression, God places a mark of protection on Cain. Because yes, judgment comes, but God's mercy still shines even in the midst of darkness. Now stop and think, what does all this mean? This isn't just an ancient account. It's a reflection of what we still see today. People choosing the path of envy, comparison, anger, and destruction. Brothers turning against brothers. The ego taking the place of worship. But it's also a warning. God keeps asking, why are you angry? God keeps saying, sin is at the door, rule over it. And maybe he's saying that to you right now. How many times have we offered something to God with the wrong heart? How many times have we looked at others and felt jealous of their blessings instead of taking care of our own offering? The story of Cain and Abel calls us to reflect on our motivation before God. What are we offering? Are we bringing our best, or just what's left? Are we offering in faith, or out of obligation? And most importantly, are we ruling over sin, or is sin ruling over us? Abel was the first victim of human hatred, but his blood pointed to a greater blood. The author of Hebrews says that Jesus is the mediator of a new covenant, and his blood speaks better things than that of Abel. Hebrews 12:24. Abel's blood cried out for justice. Jesus' blood cries out for grace and reconciliation. And that's what gives us hope. Because even though we live in a world full of Cains, the Lamb was slain and rose again to offer us forgiveness, redemption, and a new chance. If this message spoke to you, leave a comment below. Write, "Lord, I want to offer my best." Don't forget to subscribe to the Prayer Blaze. Hit the notification bell and share this message with someone who needs to hear it. The story doesn't end here. In the next part, we will see how evil spreads across the earth and how God responds to the growing corruption of humanity. Stay tuned, because the next part begins right after this.
Final part of the first episode, the end of an era, the promise and the hope of redemption before we begin. If this series is touching your heart, subscribe now to Prayer Blaze. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what's next in this life-changing journey. We're walking through God's plan and we want you with us. Now think with me. You saw the perfect creation, the harmony of Eden. Then came the fall, the first sin, the first separation between man and God, but also the first promise. God didn't walk away. Even when darkness entered, he stayed. He remained faithful, and he still does. Now, we go deeper into the promise of redemption. In the beginning, there was nothing, not emptiness, nothingness. And then God said, "Let there be light." And light came. From that light came order, beauty, meaning. Creation was more than design. It was divine intention. Then came the pinnacle, man and woman in God's image, with spirit, with freedom, with purpose, and a place. Eden not just a garden, but a sanctuary, a place of walking with God. But love without freedom isn't love. And in that freedom came the test, the serpent, the lie, the pride, and man fell. Sin entered, death followed, and what was whole broke. Still, God came searching. Adam, where are you? That question wasn't about location. It was about the heart. And today, God still asks, where are you? Even then, God didn't bring wrath first. He brought a promise. Genesis 3:15, I will put enmity between you and the woman. He will crush your head and you will strike his heel right in the fall. Hope was born. This was the first prophecy, the first glimpse of Jesus, the one who would defeat the serpent, the Redeemer. God didn't give up on us. He could have erased everything, but he chose to restore. Why does that matter now? Because the same God still calls, still promise, still redeemed. This story isn't about perfect people finding God. It's about a perfect God pursuing broken people. And that promise sits for you. You who failed. You who doubt. You who long for restoration. The hope has a name. Jesus. If these words are reaching you now, it's not by accident. God is inviting you into his plan, into redemption. So if this series is speaking to your soul, comment below, I believe in the promise, or say how God is speaking to you. Share, like, invite someone who needs hope, and don't leave without subscribing, because what comes next is even more powerful. Next episode, the flood, when God said enough.